There were tense moments on the campaign trail in Iowa on Thursday as frontrunner Joe Biden clashed with a voter who questioned the ethics of his family's past work in Ukraine. Biden even challenged the man to a push-up contest. Ed O'Keefe is following this story.
I got a question I want you to answer.
Pacing the floor like a prize fighter, Joe Biden punched back when challenged on how his son Hunter landed a lucrative position in Ukraine.
You're a damn liar, man. That's not true. And no one has ever said that? No one has proved that?
I see it on the TV.
You see it on the TV.
Hunter Biden joined the board of Burisma in April 2014, around the time his father was pressing the Ukrainian government to fight corruption.
We want Biden.
President Trump has spread disproven accusations of wrongdoing against them, and his concerns with what the Bidens were doing is at the heart of the impeachment inquiry.
You said I set up my son to work in an oil company. Isn't that what you said? Get your words straight, Jack.
That's what I hear on MSNBC.
You don't hear that on MSNBC?
The hell I didn't.
Look, here's the deal. Here's the deal.
It looks like you don't have any more backbone than Trump does when you're selling.
Also today in Iowa, tough talk from New Jersey Senator Cory Booker. He's concerned that polling and fundraising requirements mean it's unlikely that minority presidential candidates like him will appear on stage at the party's next debate in 2 weeks.
I'm just going to say it plain. It is a problem that we now have an overall campaign for the 2020 presidency that has more billionaires in it than black people.
Political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins me now from Washington. Ed, so far only 6 Democratic presidential candidates have qualified for the next debate on December 19th. Cory Booker is unlikely to join the stage due to polling. So what does he really need to do, thinks needs to be done to give candidates of color a fair chance in this race?
You know, at this point, there's not really much they can do other than find some polling by next Wednesday that puts them at a level at which they qualify to be there. The rules are the rules through at least December. Remember, these rules that have really dictated the ebbs and flows of this race all year could potentially change starting in January. The question is whether that would actually allow people who haven't been on the stage somehow to get back in. And if so, there's going to be a lot of hand-wringing and finger-pointing, asking questions about, well, what if you had done that sooner? Would Kamala Harris still be in the race? Would Julian Castro be polling at a higher level? Would Andrew Yang? And what about Tulsi Gabbard? None of those people so far have been able to make this debate stage and have dropped out, in part because so much attention is focused on one night each month where they're trying to catch oxygen, somehow find some altitude and sustain that. And it's been very tricky for anyone other than Biden, Bernie, and Warren to get that, to do that. And so, Booker at this point making a last-ditch appeal here, and frankly speaking some awful truths, I think, to a lot of his fellow Democrats who saw this year start with a record-size field and record diversity, gender diversity, ethnic diversity, now potentially on the precipice of being an all-white field. And the one really interesting piece of context, Sukanya, that I saw today, go back to December 2015, when Republicans had an equally large field. They had 2 Latinos on stage in their December debate, Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, and a black guy, Ben Carson. Democrats may have 6 white people. For people who care about this, that's going to be telling and a hard pill to swallow.
Definitely very telling. Also, let's talk about Mayor Bloomberg. He unveiled a gun safety policy agenda on Thursday. Let's listen to some of what he said.
One of the biggest problems with existing background check systems has nothing to do with the database. It contains a lot of useful information about criminal history, but most of it can't be used actually to deny a purchase. And we're going to change that by requiring buyers to obtain a permit before they purchase a gun. Because just having a background check isn't enough. The question is, even no matter what the background check says, can you stop them from getting a gun when they're a minor, when they have a criminal record, or when they have psychiatric problems?
So we just heard him talking about requiring permits for gun owners, and how central is this issue to his campaign?
It is likely to actually be quite central for this reason. He has spent the last several years bankrolling gun control organizations and the push, especially at the local and state level, to restrict gun access and change gun laws. If you look at the group across the country known as Mom Demands Action, it's essentially an organization that grew out of a merger with a group that Bloomberg had started. And at some point after the Sandy Hook shooting back in 2012, he essentially went to these mothers who had started their organization on Facebook and said, look, you're onto something here. I've got the money and the staffing to help take this national and to a much bigger extent. Why don't we just team up? And you may remember over the summer after a shooting, there was a gathering put together in less than a week in Iowa that was paid for by this organization and by Bloomberg. So he actually has a lot of goodwill with liberal or Democratic voters, independent voters, for whom gun control is a big concern. And it's likely, I would think, that he and his team has said he will focus on this issue as he travels the country. As he tells Gayle King, people will probably see when the interview airs tomorrow, we can say this now, that he makes the point. It's not just an issue at schools or movie theaters. It's an issue in inner cities. It's an issue in poor communities. And it's one that he's likely to continue talking about. By going to Aurora, where, of course, there was a movie theater shooting a few years ago, he definitely highlights an issue that is quite apparent, quite immediate, still quite sensitive in the state of Colorado.
Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren also took aim at Bloomberg in an interview she gave on Wednesday on his own TV network. Why is she singling him out?
Because he's a convenient boogeyman in the arguments she makes about the wealthy in this country and the power that they are sort of holding and keeping from the masses. She has argued that billionaires like Bloomberg should be paying what she calls a 2-cent wealth tax, essentially 2 cents of every dollar, to help bankroll all the changes that she would like to make in terms of the economy, healthcare, education, and infrastructure and whatnot. And she now has cut an ad that we expect we'll see in higher rotation in the coming days that says essentially he thinks it's cheaper to spend just a few $100 million buying the presidency instead of paying the taxes that I think billionaires like him should pay. We'll see if that works, but it's an awfully effective argument for people who are fans of Elizabeth Warren.
All right. Ed O'Keefe, thank you.
Take care.